Hey guys, in today's video I'm going to be talking about the best genetics of all time in bodybuilding. I will showcase the 10 most genetically gifted bodybuilders, in my opinion of course, and I know there will be some controversies within my decisions. So, to begin, I'll get the honorable mentions out of the way first. Chris Bumstead is the current classic physique Mr. Olympia, and has been the most dominant champion in his division since 2019. He has racked up 4 Olympia victories thanks to his classic shape, superior structure, and elite muscle bellies. The improvements he has made throughout his career have propelled him so far ahead of the competition, which can be seen in his arms and back. They went from his most criticized weak point to praised assets. While he is great, his division's weight cap and his overall lack of muscularity, in comparison to the upcoming physiques, places him in an honorable mention spot. Arnold is considered the best bodybuilder of all time by many. However, he falls into a similar situation as Chris Bumstead. I think he is overrated. However, this does not deny the fact that he achieved great success, along with 7 Olympia victories. He had very dominant parts, like his biceps and chest, but lacked in other areas, like in his legs. He had a great physique for his time, yet not great enough to land in the top 10. Dexter Jackson has the most professional bodybuilding wins in history, at 29 titles. He has won the Olympia once and the Arnold Classic 5 times, and most of all has competed for over 20 years. His muscle bellies are round and his structure is great. However, I don't believe that his longevity and physique stand within the top 10. I know this may seem controversial to put 4-time Mr. Olympia Jay Cutler in an honorable mention, but hear me out. He was an insane competitor, possessing elite clavicle width, quads, and overall aesthetics. I do believe that his wider waist, lagging lower back, and unsymmetrical arms hinder his greatness. Regardless, his 2001 and 2009 physiques could easily share the stage with the top 10. Shawn Ray had an incredibly symmetrical and complete physique. He possessed an aesthetic flow and really had no lagging body parts. If the 212 division was around during his time, he would easily win it. However, because of his shorter stature, being 5'6", his potential was most definitely hindered. Other competitors shared similar characteristics, but had the height advantage over him, which is why Shawn lands in 10th. Big Ramy is the only current competitor on this list. He has won 2 Olympia titles and is probably the biggest, pound-for-pound, bodybuilder to ever grace the stage. Although his triceps and back, along with his quads, have suffered some sort of injuries, his overall structure and ability to pack on dense muscle is unbeatable. He truly is a freak of a bodybuilder, which is why I have him in 9th place. Paul Dillet is probably the biggest what-if in bodybuilding history. He had an insane structure, crazy muscle bellies and proportions, a tiny waist, and booming arms. Just looking at him relaxed would immediately make one think he was the champion. That's how good his genetics were. Unfortunately, his inability to pack on muscle from the rear, which made his arms and legs unproportional in comparison to his back, leave him in only 8th place. Lee Priest might be the craziest bodybuilder of all time, in terms of his ability to put on muscle. From the very young age of 12, he had a physique many find amazing, and by 17 he had one many considered unattainable. Similar to Shawn Ray, Priest could easily win the 212 Olympia if it was around in his time. However, I feel that his short height and lack of thickness from the rear knock him down a bit, leaving him in 7th place. Kevin Levrone takes Lee's ability to put on muscle to the max. Kevin was known for being able to pack on quality, conditioned muscle rapidly, because he was considered a hyper-responder to gear. His crazy shoulders and arms, aesthetic midsection, and overall great proportions create a statuesque physique. I will knock on him just a little bit for having a quote-unquote lagging back in comparison to some of the upcoming names. However, his great shape and his ability to pack on the size place him in 6th. Flex Wheeler definitely has some of the best genetics of all time. I mean, he was called the Sultan of Symmetry. His physique arguably is the most perfect physique of all time, possessing insane, cartoonish, and bubbly muscle bellies, and of course his trademark symmetry. I will say that his rear, mainly his calves and back, weren't the best. However, his aesthetic flow definitely made up for it. However, the body's ability to function while using steroids is a huge genetic factor, and Flex's body was unable to handle the steroid usage, ultimately having his leg amputated because of circulatory and kidney issues. Overall, Flex had an amazing career and had some of the best, most eye-pleasing genetics of all time. Although Sergio Oliva was a competitor during the golden age of bodybuilding, I believe he had some insane genetics. His enormous width through the clavicles and tiny waist created an insane V-taper and X-frame, and he possessed great muscularity considering the time period. His muscle quality and size could potentially rival modern-day bodybuilders. Comparing him to greats such as his rival, Arnold, shows superior genetics, and with access to modern equipment and drugs, I feel he could easily wipe the top three. My top three most genetically gifted bodybuilders consist of Dorian Yates, Phil Heath, and Ronnie Coleman. Once again, this video consists of my opinion and is merely a means to express some fun. Any changes or opinions would be gladly heard in the comments. Dorian Yates, also known as the Shadow, had one of the craziest, freakiest backs of all time. His dense, grainy conditioning and superior muscle quality propelled him to the top of the bodybuilding ladder. The 1993 prep photos of him a few weeks out of the Olympia were so crazy that they still shock bodybuilding fans to this day. In his early years, many doubted his genetics, with himself even thinking he had average genetics. However, his transformation throughout the early 90s and into the mid to late 90s was legendary. Yates's bulbous-like lats really stood out during the 90s lineups, with nobody coming close to the level of muscularity that he possessed. I will say that genetically weak body parts like his arms and shoulders and perhaps his chest held him back in comparison to the next two physiques. However, Yates was able to work through these. Overall, his ability to build and retain freakish levels of muscle place him third. Phil Heath had crazy 3D muscle bellies, similar to Kevin Levrone. His muscles were round, full, and cartoonish, and he had crazy proportions. His back, arms, legs, chest, shoulders, and pretty much everything were put together perfectly, having the right amount of freak factor and aesthetics. Now, I know some people will mention his gut, with some calling him Phil the Gut Heath. His gut wasn't a genetic factor, it was bloating that happened due to drugs, excess food, etc., as well as a hernia. If we look past his misshapen and unaesthetic midsection, we see a very muscular physique which outclassed all in its time, and one that would dominate in many eras. He transformed from a rather aesthetic, lean physique to a crazy, full, muscular freak, and one can only attribute Phil's physique to some insane genetics. Ronnie Coleman and the King go hand in hand. I mean, the King literally won 8 Olympias, tying it with Lee Haney, who unfortunately did not make the list. Haney might be on the list in the future, if I rank spots 20 through 11. Ronnie Coleman has the best genetics hands down. He claims that his early physiques were natural, and I believe he is telling the truth because of his transformation. If he was on gear before, how is it possible that he transformed from a, let's say, 1994 physique to 2003? Moreover, early pictures of him show him packing considerable amounts of muscle, with himself claiming that he had lots of muscle even before working out. Either way, one cannot deny his insane shape, muscularity, freakish body parts, which consist of practically every single one of them, and his insane strength. His 800-pound squat is something that almost none can do, especially at his body fat, and his level of conditioning and mass left it almost impossible for anyone to dethrone the King in his prime. Overall, Ronnie Coleman has the best genetics in my opinion. Thanks for watching my first bodybuilding video. Any criticism is appreciated and welcome. If you enjoyed, liking and subscribing is always appreciated, and with that I bid you all a good day or night.